Hey there guys, this is Cole. Welcome back to another movie review. Today's movie I'm going to be reviewing is a movie that I just finished watching for the very first time, and that's a 1993 action movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme called Nowhere to Run. Now, I have seen the 1993 Jean-Claude Van Damme action movie Hard Target, directed by John Woo, which I absolutely love that movie. That movie's an action classic. I will review that someday, but decided to check this one out because this is a movie that I had heard good things about from some of the YouTubers I like, but just never really got around to watching it. But I saw recently this movie was free on Tubi, so I figured I would give it a watch. And before I get into my thoughts, I want to hear what you think of this movie in the comment section down below. So the plot of this movie is as follows. An escaped convict, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, travels to a farm to search for money from an earlier heist. While out on the property, he meets pretty single mother Clyde, played by Rosia Arquette, and her kids, Mookie, played by Kieran McCauley, and Bree, played by Tiffany Tubman, who are being intimidated by local land developer Franklin Hale, played by Joss Ackland. After falling for Clyde, Sam decides to stay and help defend the farm from Hale's thugs, despite the risk that it means for him as a wanted man. So that's basically the plot synopsis to this movie, and I gotta say, this movie's got a really good cast. You got Jean-Claude Van Damme as the main character, Sam. You got Rosanna Arquette as Clyde. You got Mookie, who's actually played by Macaulay Culkin's brother, Kieran Culkin, which, if any of you guys are familiar with Macaulay Culkin as an actor, he played Kevin in the movie Home Alone, so it's nice to see his brother star in this type of movie. You got Mr. Dunstan, played by Ted Levine, who was Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, so it's nice to see him in this type of action movie. You got Tiffany Tubman as Clyde's daughter. You got Lonnie, who played by Edward Blatchford. You got Billy, played by Anthony Stark. Franklin Hale, played by Josh Ackland. And so, yeah, this movie's got a pretty good stacked cast to it. And I overall did like this movie. So, how was this movie received? Well, when this movie was released on January 13th, 1993, the movie received mixed reviews from critics and audiences, but was a big hit at the box office by Columbia Pictures, and over the years, this movie has gained a cult following. As for my reaction to the movie, I did like it. So let's get into my review. So the movie starts off where we are introduced to our main character, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, who is a prisoner on a bus, and he's on a bus with a few people, but he's on a prison bus because he's a prisoner, and then there's an accident that happens with a car on the road, making the bus tip over, and the main character, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he decides to escape, and he goes with his partner, his friend, So Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, and his friend, they basically steal the person's car that, the person that made their car drive, that made the bus tip over. That way they can escape from the police. But while this is happening, and the main character, Sam, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's able to drive and get them to escape. His partner is shot by accident, and his partner dies, and Van Damme, the main character, Sam Gillen, played by Van Damme, does what he feels is right. He brings him out to the field and buries him, which we don't see it on camera, but we know that's what he's doing. And then Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he needs a place to stay. So he goes in the woods, and he drives a car to the woods by a farm. That way he can stay in the woods private area for a while to stay away from local authorities, and he basically uses a tent to camp out and stuff like that. And the first night that the main character, Sam Gillen, or the main character played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, is at the farm, he basically sees the mother and the kids and stuff like that. And then later that night, he's in the house. He accidentally bumps a lamp, but he picks it up and then leaves the house. And then the next morning, the kid named Mookie, played by Kieran McCulkin, Macaulay Culkin's brother, he tells the mother, "I heard E.T. last night," and the mother's like, "Come on, E.T. the extraterrestrial is not real. It's just a fictional movie." He's like, "No, it's not. I heard it last night." And then the kid runs outside, and then yeah, and when he says he heard that, it's in the morning, daytime, by the way, and so the next night when Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, goes in the house, he accidentally happens to knock he knocks over, well, he does the same thing again, but the main character, Sam Gillen, the main character, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he goes back in the house that night, but Mookie, the little kid boy, he bounces a ball down to him, and Van Damme, or the main character Sam Gillen, played by Van Damme, runs out of the house and he goes to his tent, and then the kid follows him, and the kid and this is a bit of humor I like. This is a part of the movie I thought was funny, where the main character Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's looking at some dirty magazines with women not wearing shirts, and then the kid comes into the tent. And he says, and the kid says, "Do you like boobies?" He says, "Sometimes." And then the kid says, "I hate boobies. I think they're gross. What's your name?" And my name's Mookie, but my name's Mike, but people call me Mookie. What's your name? And then Sam introduces himself and stuff like that. And he says, "Well, good night. I'll see you in the morning." And then Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, says, "I don't know if I'll see you I might not be here tomorrow morning," and stuff like that. And then the next morning, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's basically taking a bath in the lake, in the woods where he put the tent. And what I like about this character, Sam Gillen, he's smart. So he doesn't want the cops to track his location, or that a car was stolen. So he decides to drive the car, get it to basically go in the lake so no one will find it, basically, which I thought, okay, that was smart. But anyways, getting back to what I was talking about. So the next morning, the kid named Mookie, played by Macaulay Culkin, as well as his sister, Bree, played by Tiffany Tubman, are outside, but the kid, Mookie, he's basically talking to Van Damme, and he says, "Do you want me to cook you something?" And he says, "Yeah, steak," and stuff like that. And Mookie he's taking a bath in the lake, which is why he doesn't have any clothes on. He gets out of the lake, but but Mookie's sister walks by, and we don't see it, obviously, for obvious reasons, because they had to cut it out, but once Sam Gillen gets out the water, he notices that little girl's coming by, and he doesn't want anyone to see his what, so he gets back in the water to basically bathe and stuff like that. And then Mookie's mother, Clyde, is basically calling for the kids, like asking where they are, and then Mookie's like, "I gotta go," but before Mookie goes, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, says, "Do not tell anyone I was here, okay?" And then and then I like the part when Bree, the little sister, says to her brother, "I'm gonna tell Mom," and he says, "Oh, if you tell him," and then I like the part when, just to make her upset, when Mookie says, "Well, if you tell Mom, I'm gonna tell her you smoke," and she's like, "I do not." Like, I thought that was funny. And then later that night, when the mother, Clyde, is in the car with her two kids, these bad guys show up, and they're basically telling Clyde to get out the car, and she was like, "Stop it, you're scaring my kids." And they aim a gun up to them. And then I like the part when Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, shows up to the farm, and he says to the bad guys, "Leave them alone." And then Mookie cheers and says, "Sam," and stuff like that. And then I like the part when the bad guys say, "Who are you? Who are you?" And then I like the part when Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, says, "I am a businessman. and you are disturbing my customers. And then they get into a fight and stuff like that. And then the mother thanks him, but like, you know, at the same time, she's kind of a bit like what's going on here and stuff like that. But, you know, she's not all used to it because she doesn't know who any of these people are. And then later that night, the kids go to bed and stuff like that. But before the kids go to bed, the kid, Mookie, was so happy that that Sam Gillen, played by Van Damme, saved him, that he gives him a hug goodnight. And then, you know, the kids go upstairs to their room. And I like the conversation that Van Damme has with, that Jean-Claude Van Damme's character, Sam Gillen, has with Clyde, which Clyde is played by Rosia Arquette. I thought that these two that this actor and actress, I thought they had really good chemistry together. They're not a couple, but like you bought them as people that were starting to bond and become friends. And then throughout the course of the movie, like I said, the whole reason Sam is even there in the first place is to search for money from an earlier heist that, you know, went missing and stuff like that. And I like the part where Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he lies to the mother and he says to the mother that that I am a guy from Quebec and that I'm a lawyer and stuff like that, and that I'm camping here behind the house and stuff like that. And she starts to like him throughout the movie. However, before then, Clyde was dating a police officer by the name of Sheriff Leone, played by Edward Batchford. I think that's how you say the name. I thought the actor did do a good job playing him, but to be honest, I thought the sheriff was kind of... This is really just a small little nitpick I have to the movie. I think the sheriff, he's a little bit of a jerk and not in a good way. But luckily, he's not the main focus of the movie, so I can let that slide because, again, the movie's centered on Jean-Claude Van Damme, who I do like as an actor, and I like his character in this movie. Later on in the movie, we are introduced to the main bad guy of the movie, Franklin Hale, played by Joss Ackland, who... Granted, he is a bit of an older actor. I think at the time when this movie came out, I think he was like in his mid-60s around there. So he is a bit older, but I still thought that I'm not too familiar with this actor, but I thought he did a good job as the villain in this movie. And basically, the main villain of the movie, Franklin Hale, he basically plans to build a really huge... He basically plans to build a really huge golf course and a whole land, you know, where people live and stuff like that. But the mother, Clyde, is against that. And I thought that Franklin Hale, played by Joss Ackland, was a really good bad guy in the movie. And we're introduced to that character at like the 37-minute mark of the movie. And the main character, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, is standing next to Clyde. And the guy and Franklin asks, "Who's this?" And then she says, "It's Sam, my cousin from Quebec." And he's like, "Nice to meet you." But then he leaves the house, and then the mother and the kids don't hear this, but the main bad guy, Franklin Hale, says, "These guys are ruining our effing property, and we're not going to stand for this." And then about the 45-minute mark of the movie, we are introduced to a character by the name of Mr. Dunstan, who just so happens to be one of the henchmen of the main bad guy of the movie, Franklin Hale. And Mr. Dunstan is actually played by Ted Levine. Yes, the actor who played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs just 2 years before this. He plays one of the bad guys in this movie, so I thought it was cool to see him in this movie. And when he first interacts with Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme's character, Sam Gillen, says, "I'm just here to get a motorcycle." And the guy's questioning a motorcycle. And then he says, "You're not from around here, are you?" And then Sam Gillen asks the same. And, you know, they kind of both smile and laugh. And they have a conversation because, you know, not too long before this, you know, a couple minutes before this scene, the movie takes place at night where... Remember how I said that Clyde, the mother, was not going to stand for people to take her land? Well, basically, there was a character by the name of Tom Lewis, played by Stephen Bridgeway, who who said, "We are not going to stand for this land being taken away from us," and stuff like that. And then later that night, when Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, is asleep, the kid, Mookie, wakes him up and says, "There's a fire at the barn." And then, and then Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he comes to the rescue and he rescues Tom from the burning barn and stuff like that. And again, like I said, this is a really good movie. Really, the only problem I have is that, like I said, Sheriff Leone, I don't really like that character. I think he's kind of a bit too much of a jerk for his own good, but luckily he's not the main focus of the movie. But, like, at about the hour mark of the movie, like, he's being a complete jerk. He briefly beats up the main character, Sam Gillen, played by Van Damme, knocks him on the ground. The mother comes home, and she's like, "Who did this to you?" But the mother does not know that Sheriff Leone is the one who did it. And another thing, Sheriff Leone also kind of treats Clyde like crap a little earlier on in the movie. So, yeah. But then, throughout the course of the movie, the kids, the mother, and Sam Gillen, they all get along and stuff like that. But then, however, at a little past the hour mark of the movie, Sheriff Leone says, "I just did a background check on you by the FBI." He says, "I know who you are," and then he tells the truth to Clyde, and, she's upset, and she basically tells Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, I want you to leave us and the kids alone and get out of this now before we call the cops," and stuff like that. So then, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he leaves the farm, and then the bad guys show up, where the bad guys, Franklin Hale, played by Joss Ackland, and Mr. Dunstan, played by Ted Levine, and a few of the other bad guys, they show up to the farm and stuff like that, and they're basically threatening the kids' lives and stuff like that. And then Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he comes to the rescue. He saves the kids and the mother. And I really like the action scenes in this movie, especially the final fight between Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Mr. Dunstan, where he defeats Mr. Dunstan where Mr. Dunstan charges at Van Damme with a pitchfork, but, Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he flips him in the air. Mr. Dunstan, he falls through a glass window on the car. He tries to shoot Sam Gillen with a shotgun, but the little kid, Mookie, he tosses Van Damme, or Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, a revolver, and then Van Damme's able to defeat the bad guy with a revolver, and then the movie ends where Sam Gillen has to be taken to jail for the crimes he did in the past, and Mookie and the other girl and his sister and the wife are like, "Please," like, Mookie's like, "Please, I don't want you to go," and stuff like that. And then Sam Gillen, played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, says, "I have to go. I did something before I shouldn't have done a long time ago." And then he says to him, "Goodbye, my friend." And then the movie ends with him in a car, with the bad guys defeated. And heck, even the main bad guy of the movie, Franklin Hale, who the town pretty much liked, who was a businessman, he's now proven to be a criminal too, so he gets arrested. So yeah. That's how the movie ends. So yeah, at the end of the day, I liked it. Pretty good movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. And yeah, we'll catch you guys later for the next review. Bye-bye.